have the degree, you got your BSW, got the MSW, but you lack experience. What do? It can be so discouraging. It really can. Because it's almost like on one hand, they're saying, hey, we want you to have this degree. And then the other side, they're like, hey, but we need some experience from you. So you're just like, well, how am I going to get the experience if you don't hire me? I did get quite a few requests for this. It relates to the lack of social work experience. People entering into their programs with just really not having a whole lot of experiences with social work practices or social work experience as it related to their internships, field practicum, and then also ultimately their careers. This video is for anyone who feels they lack social work experience in any of those areas. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. My name is Melanie, and you are watching Core Inspirations. It's a channel designed with social work students and professionals in mind. On this space and on this channel, we talk about all things social work, really the process to and through your social work program to your social work career. And I share my personal experience. Subscribe so that you can join and be welcomed in to the social work tribe. Right, so as I was saying, I got a lot of feedback around people entering into their programs with just really not having a whole lot of experience. But then I also found that people were kind of like hesitant of even like applying for a social work program because they felt like, well, hey, I don't really know if I have enough experience to kind of like, even apply. I'll touch on three things today, three areas. The first is going to be, and I'm looking down at my notes, so I want to make sure that I'm giving you what you need. Because I was kind of shocked a little bit. I was kind of shocked that some people were really like, really kind of like leery, of applying to their social work program. I do understand that some people are within, their lives are doing career changes, and some people may have degrees, undergrad degrees or even master level degrees or doctorate degrees in other professions, in other fields. So sometimes you're kind of like making a switch and you don't have it. Some of my, cohort before, like undergrad and grad, really undergrad, some people were coming like from the business sector. A lot of people were coming from the business and finance sector and kind of, did their time there and kind of wanted something, new and more refreshed. So I do understand it. And then some people are just fresh new. Some people are traditional students and they just really haven't had a lot of work experience. But we're going to tackle into three different areas as it relates to you feeling like you have a lack of social work experience. And I want to be able to help you navigate and strategize to how to still be able to succeed in your internships for my undergrad people and your field practicums for my graduate students. And then also within your career for my newly graduate or seasoned, people that may be seasoned in the workforce area in other areas, but not so much within the social work field. So let's go. All right, number one. So your social work program. So this is going to pretty much transcend to both areas, your BSW and your MSW program. So a lot of times, like I said, people were saying like, hey, I don't really have a lot of social work experience. But what I want you to realize is that, for one, as it relates to like the social work staff and the program staff, like it's understood. Excuse me, please know, like it's understood. When you are applying to these programs and when you're applying to different social work programs, whether it be undergrad or graduate level, the staff there are versed in knowing that they're going to have a variety of students from all different types of backgrounds. So I want you to do your research, and a lot of times, and I have a video on that, and I'll see if I can probably link it or put it somewhere here about actually applying, 5 tips of applying to an MSW program. Really, really look at that video because it really talks and kind of details. Is really detailed. But it gives you a really good insight of some things that you probably want to start doing, before you even apply to it. So just don't get hung up on just not having experience. There's so many different other things that goes into actually applying that you want to make sure that you are researching and seeing if it's even a good program for you. Because not every social work program would be the ideal for you. Depends on your pretty much your area of practice. Like, what are you doing? What are you wanting to specialize in? Some people have clinical based programs. Some people have macro level based programs. Some people have generalist programs where they kind of do a combination of all. That's the program that I went with. It was really versed in cultural competence, but it was more of a generalist, program. But I mean, you just really have to know what's for you, But just to kind of give you some tips, I wrote some things down. But know that they understand that people have different degrees in different areas. They don't expect for you to be an expert. They're not going to expect for you to know everything. That's why you're applying, because you're applying to a program. You may have some knowledge, but it may be limited, or you may be a novice, and it's okay. It's okay, but definitely do the research ahead of time, because some of the requirements that'll let you know if some of the things that you've already had experience in, if you can utilize some of those things as some of the things that you kind of highlight on your application. Like I mentioned, some people, they realize that people have experiences in changing careers, so they're not requiring you to be a BSW if you're applying for a BSW program. They're not requiring you to be an MSW verse student if you're applying to an MSW program. So just know, try to take some of that pressure off, because it could be a process. It could be a lot, because it's something like, hey, this is my identified goal. I want to be successful at it. I want to get in. I want to get accepted. But just know to take the pressure off that you're entering something new. And even though you may have degrees in other areas, or even if you don't, you're still entering something new. And they're prepared. Professors, faculty, and staff, they are prepared to kind of walk you through their applying process and steps. And you can have these. These are some of the questions you may want to ask up front. Like, hey, do you require this, or do you prefer this? So I think if you do a lot of the research on the front end, I think those are kind of ease some of your nerves on the latter end when it's time to submit the application, because you'll know okay, I've talked with the necessary people I needed to talk to. I found out the different requirements of the program. I have them listed here, and I meet the eligibility requirements. So that way hey, I'm going into this with meeting requirements, and I'm going to be open to learning more. Okay? So hopefully that makes you feel much better. Hopefully not a little bit, but hopefully that makes you feel much better about being hesitant, to apply for a social work program without social work experience. That was pretty interesting to me. I had quite a few people concerned with that. So I wanted to definitely address that first. The second area, as it relates to the lack of social work experience, it comes to internships and field practicum. So this is the area where, like I said, sometimes people have previous experience in different areas, or like myself, I had general experience too, but I still wanted to get more in-depth social work practice, understanding the process and procedures of being a social worker. And I know a lot of times some people don't realize that depending on where you are living, depending on what your state is, a lot of times within our profession, people will get that title of being a social worker where they necessarily may not have the education to be what they deem by the state, to be a social worker. So some of the roles that we do, some of the case management, I find that that's what a lot of people kind of get that line kind of skewed. They'll take a case management responsibility and duty, and because it's similar to what a social worker will do, they'll deem that whole position as a social worker. And we've been kind of fighting, and when I say we, the profession has been really fighting to make sure that people that are not meeting the qualifications, the requirements, educational requirements, not to be deemed as a social worker if they haven't went through the necessary steps educationally to actually be deemed as a social worker. But as it relates to internships and field practicums, this is where you're going to have to be strategic. You are going to have to kind of sit down and just take some time to think and say, what is it that I'm wanting to land? What role am I wanting to land post-grad, undergrad, or graduate school? What's your role? You need to be thinking about those things, because a lot of times this is a time for you to actually meet up with and work with your field instructor and your field liaisons. So these are two critical people that you want to team up with on your behalf, because what it does is, a lot of times, I know when I applied, they allowed you to give a 1, 2, and 3 option of a field that you may be interested in. So some of it may be mental health, some of it may be school social work, or some of it may be substance abuse. So those are different areas of practice that you may want to, be interested in. So if you know that already, that you're interested in these particular practices, then you want to look for opportunities, whether it's volunteer, on campus or off. And then also if you can have a practicum or an internship that goes along with what you're trying to do. I think ultimately that's the smartest way to do it. It doesn't always work out that way. And for me personally, I wanted to choose a field that I didn't necessarily think I may like, but it didn't work out that way. It worked out. I was actually a school, ended up getting the school social work intern position. So I was really, I was still excited about it, but I had applied to I had applied for various other field practicum positions, so I interviewed for several, like I want to say I had 6 or 7 interviews. Like it was just a lot, and it can get very, very stressful. And I think I might make a video on that too, because that was a unique situation. I felt like I went through a lot of lessons and learning, really finding out what you like and what you don't like. But yeah, I would say be really strategic. Also, another thing too, as I talked about volunteer experience, I was also a research assistant in a community-based research program. And that provided me a lot of insight. I took advantage of some leadership training. Look out for different trainings that will help you. So what you're doing, especially to my traditional students or my non-traditionals who have not been to school in a long time, or may not even have a degree, or maybe doing like a transfer of arts type thing where you started off as a community college like I did and then transferred your credits over. You want to definitely make sure that you're setting yourself up to build upon your experience as you go. Build upon it, because your end goal is going to be, I got this degree, but a lot of times, as you know, and if you haven't experienced it yet, some people are not really weighing that degree, because now you're going to be graduating. It's going to be a lot of people in a lot of different programs. And if you stay in a state like I stay in, there's a lot of universities, there's a lot of community colleges that are going through the process of recruiting social workers and having them start up. So what I'm saying, the numbers of graduates are really large. So it's competition. So you want to make sure that you understand that employers may not really be at all enthused at really seeing like, hey, this person has a social work degree, but they're also wanting to know like, hey, what's your experience? So some people are not able to get certain things because they lack that experience. But if you start off when you are definitely entering into your program and looking for opportunities to be strategic about how it's going to help you build your experience, I think you'll be good to go. And if you guys want more particulars surrounding that, because I don't want to hold up the video too long for that, but definitely, comment below and let me know. But yeah, be strategic about looking at other opportunities outside of your school and inside of your school too, like for emails and different departments, different associations. If it's something similar to the work that you're doing, definitely look at the opportunity and ask your professors. They are linked with a lot of resources. They have partnerships with a lot of different surrounding communities and other universities. So definitely utilize some of those relationships that you have. And then the last thing that I'm going to talk about is your career. What do you do when you have the degree? You got your BSW, got the MSW, but you lack experience. What do you do? It can be so discouraging. It really can. Because it's almost like on one hand they're saying, hey, we want you to have this degree. And then the other saying, they're like, hey, but we need some experience from you. So you're just like, well, how am I going to get the experience if you don't hire me? So I know a lot of people fall within that. And the thing about it, like I said, if you go back to listening to what I said about the social work programs, everything is built in the internships, field practicum. Those are the things that you want to utilize. So if you don't have any experience at all, and I'm just using this as a scenario with nobody having experience, and you land a field practicum position or internship, you're going to want to highlight that, because that is going to be a bulk of your experience. And then most of the people that are hiring you for a social work position, they know that you're going to have some type of required internship that's going to last for a certain amount of time, or either a field practicum. So they're looking for that. And you need to be able to articulate what you learned from that experience. So I'm telling you, if you don't have any experience, you want to utilize your internships and your field practicums, even if it means to really, advocate for yourself more. Like if you're doing assignments, if you're like, this easy peasy, I'm good, I got work to do, I got assignments and other papers to write, I ain't trying to do nothing else, I'm trying to just stay below radar. But you got to think about that. Is staying below radar going to help you with your end goal? Yes, think about it. So sometimes you may, I'm not saying put tons of stuff, tons of work on yourself, because we know you still gotta, study for exams and do assignments inside of the classroom, outside of the classroom. You got your research, you got a whole lot of stuff that you have to do. But I'm just saying, be intentional. If you know it's something that you may be interested in, and it really hasn't, afforded you an opportunity to try it out, definitely try it out. Definitely with your task supervisors or the person that you report to while you're at your field placement. And I know it's kind of different too because of COVID, so it's kind of different. You're not physically in these places. I don't think most people are. I know a lot of people are doing virtual alternatives, but it's still important for you to advocate for yourself. So that way, at the end of the day, you're trying to get experiences. And then another thing too, this is a bonus tip. Number 4, I'm going to give you 4 tips. And this is really from the heart. Like, I'm really, I just wish that I had people to kind of help me through some of the things that I had to go through. I learned things, sometimes on the hard way. And sometimes, just asking questions. I'm a person, if I don't know something, I'll ask a question. But look at your learning contract. Look at your learning contract and look at some of the roles and duties that you feel like you still have not developed. Look at that and find opportunities for you to develop that, especially if it goes with some of the qualifications and skills of the role that you want. So a lot of this is forethought and foreknowledge about where you want to be. So you have to begin with your end in mind. And sometimes, like I said, I didn't have that mind frame when I first started off. It had been a gap, some time before I went back to school from my community college. I was just really trying to, be successful and make sure that I can kind of like absorb and digest the material. But now that I did the I'm about to say PSW, y'all. I don't know what degree that is. But now that I did my BSW and MSW and have some clinical experience underneath my belt now, I see how, detrimental it would have been for me if I would have connected dots. All of it worked out well, but I could have been way more strategic with some areas, some areas I was right on point. But hopefully this adds some insight to let you all know that you have what it takes. If you're just starting out this journey, like I said, I am an advocate of social work. It's one of the best decisions that I felt like I've made career-wise. And I know that our profession comes along with a lot of stigma, but if you stick around here, you'll learn that I'm going to deconstructing and debunking a lot of that because I'm living the actual life. I'm not just making up to you. I went to the necessary steps to go to school. I'm in, a social work position, social work roles, and I'm also a therapist. So I'm telling you, please talk to people that how can I say it? They offer some further validity in regards to insight, expertise about the processes and procedures of becoming a social worker. And not just people that may have the title of it, because people sometimes are not even a social worker and hate the jobs that they're doing, and they're really not even a social worker. It may be something that they're doing that's social work related, so sometimes we can just get negative feedback and that seems to stick sometimes longer. But further ado, I hope you all are doing wonderful in your program. And let me know, comment and let me know if you're enjoying these videos. I'm really trying to get a gist of what you're wanting. And I'm using, a lot of the questions that I've been answering from you guys' feedback and from your guys' comments and from you guys following up with me. So I've been enjoying that. And I'm going to keep them coming. But I do need you to like the videos. I need you to definitely thumbs it up so that I know that this is something that you're interested in looking at. And then definitely leave a comment. Share your experience. Like, what has been your experience with the lack of social work experience? If anything that I may have not have covered or mentioned, definitely comment below. Let people know like what you're doing. We're a community around here, because I'm sure the social work tribe would love to know. And that's what we do. We motivate and help each other. We collaborate information. So all is well, and hopefully everybody's enjoying their evening. And I will talk with you all later. See you later to the next video.